Hello everyone! Today this dual decks Elves versus Inventors was released, and as of yet this will be the final dual decks ever. It will be replaced, I believe, around August with something new, the Global series, and those will feature two planeswalkers fighting off against each other. So let's open it up and see what the final dual decks hold for us. As you can see, Elves versus Inventors. The very first dual deck was Elves versus Goblins. Now, funny enough, we see a Goblin and an Elf in front of here. And the previous dual deck also was Goblins. So, Alright, so we get one deck box, a second deck box featuring the Goblin Welder, and of course a Zuri. Then we get a booklet, what the theme is all about, a little bit of backstory, deck lists, etc, etc, and a quick reference sheet, which we don't need. Right. Next up, we'll get two dice, two spin downs, a green one and a red one, as depicted on the back of the box. So these are not random, I suppose. Now then, the funny thing with this deck is the legendaries have the new Dominaria Legend frame, which has all the curves here on top. Very stylish. And of course, the flavor text here is divided by a large line. We haven't seen that one yet. That's also new. I don't really like the symbol. It's a bit too coarse for my taste, but still. Right, let's see. We have Ezuri, Renegade Leader. For 3 mana we get a 2/2. For 1 mana regenerate another target elf. And for 5 elf creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until the end of turn. Very nice, with new art, as does the Goblin Welder. Also new art, but this is not legendary, so it's still in the old frame. It's a 1/1 for 1. When you tap it, choose target artifact and a player controls and target artifact card in that player's graveyard. If both targets are still legal as this ability resolves, that player simultaneously sacrifices the artifact and returns the artifact card to the battlefield. A bit of a switch up. Right, deck number 1 will be the Elf deck. And we have Dwynn as our first card. The Guildleaf Dane, also legendary. For 4 mana we get a 3/4 reach. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever Dwynn, the Guildleaf Dane, attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. Elvish Arc Druid, for 3 we get a 2/2. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1, and tap, add 1 green for each elf you control. Very nice. Gladeheart Cavalry, 7 mana 6/6. When Gladeheart Cavalry enters the battlefield, support 6. And whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, you gain 2 life. Regal Force, 7 mana 5/5. When Regal Force enters the battlefield, draw a card for each green creature you control. Sylvan Advocate, for 2 mana we get a 2/3 Vigilance. As long as you control 6 or more lands, Sylvan Advocates and land creatures you control get +2/+2. We get 2 of those. Then we get Talada's Battalion. For 2 mana we get a 4/3. Cast a spell only if you've cast another green spell this turn. And trample. And Yeva, Nature's Herald, also a legendary. For 4 mana a 4/4 Flash. And you may cast green creatures as though they had flesh. Aura Reef, the Vastwood, a land, enters the battlefield tapped. Taps for 1 green. Right, and this is also a new wording featured in Dominaria. Normally you would see add green to your mana pool. They have shortened it to add green, period. So, yeah, that's new as well. And the other ability is tap, put a +1/+1 counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield this turn. Elvish Aberration for 6 mana 4/5. If you tap it, add 3 green and 4 cycling for 2. Elvish Branch Bender, 3 mana 2/2. If you tap it until end of turn, target force becomes an XX 3/4 creature in addition to its other types, where X is the number of elves you control. Fierce Empath for 3, a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost 6 or greater. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. You used to see this card all the time in Commander, and nowadays I never see it anymore. Elvish Mystic for 1, a 1/1. Tap at 1. Basically a Llanowar Elves. We get 2 of them. Elvish Vanguard for 2 mana 1/1, and whenever another elf enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Elvish Vanguard. Azuri's Archers for 1 mana a 1/2 reach. Whenever it blocks a creature with flying, Azuri's Archers gets +3/+0 until end of turn. Get 2 of those. Another Elvish Branch Bender. Ivy Lane Denizen. For 4 mana we get a 2/3. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Get 2 of these. Crozon Tusker, 7 mana 6/5, but you actually never play it as a creature because it has cycling. Well, at least in Commander you don't. When you cycle this creature, you may search your library for a basic land card. Reveal that card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Kujar Seed Sculptor for 2 mana 1/2. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. See a lot of +1/+1 synergy in this deck. Leaf Gilder for 2, we get a 2/1. Tap at green. 2 of those. Llanowar Empath for 4 mana 2/2. When Llanowar Empath enters the battlefield, scry 2. Then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it into your hand. Wild Heart Invoker for 4, we get a 4/3, and if you pay 8, target creature gets +5/+5 and trample until end of turn. Dwinnen's Elite with a new piece of art, very nice. For 2 mana a 2/2, when Dwinnen's Elite enters the battlefield, if you control another elf, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. 2 of those. Jagged Scar Archers for 3. We get a creature that has power and toughness equal to the number of elves you control. And if you tap it, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature with flying. 2 of those. Viridian Shaman. Oh, such a nice card. For 3 mana, a 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact. Then we get a bunch of forests. And then we get to the other lands. Tranquil Thicket enters the battlefield tapped. Taps for green, or cycle 1 green. 2 of those. Treetop Village enters the battlefield tapped. Adds 1 green, or if you pay 2, you can animate it to a 3/3 green ape creature with trample until end of turn. And it's still a land. 2 of these. Lead the Stampede. For 3 mana we get a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of creature cards from among them and put that revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Naturalize for 2, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Nature's Way for 2, sorcery. Target creature you control gains vigilance and trample on the end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. 2 of those. Nissa's Judgment for 4. We get a sorcery with support 2, and choose up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals damage equal to its power to that creature. 2 of these. Then we get some tokens. Mirror token, several, and Elf Warriors. Now, are they double-sided like the Commander decks? No, they are not. Very well indeed. So, 4 Mirror tokens and 1 Lonely Elf Warrior token. Now then, we still have 1 deck to go. We have the red deck, of course. Well, actually, should I say red-blue, since there is also blue in here. Right, the Inventor side. Right, so we start off with Pia and Kiran Nalar, the parents of Chandra. For 4 mana we get a 2/2 legendary creature. When they enter the battlefield, create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. And for 3, sacrifice an artifact and they deal 2 damage to any target. Oh, nice, we get 2 of them. Right, Darksteel Plate. For 3 mana, an indestructible equipment that equips for 2, and equipped creature has indestructible. Very cool. Mere Battle Sphere. For 7 we get a 4/7 artifact creature. When it enters the battlefield, create 4 1/1 mere creature tokens. There are the tokens for that. Whenever it attacks you, may tap X untapped mirror you control. If you do, Mere Battle Sphere gets +X/+0 until end of turn and deals X damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. See, it specifies player or planeswalking nowadays. That's also new since Dominaria, the new planeswalker redirection rule, as they call it. That's what it does. Scuttling Doom Engine, 6/6 for 6, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. When it dies, it deals 6 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Solemn Simulacrum. For 4 we get a 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield you may search your library for a basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. When he dies, you draw a card. Staple in many decks. Thopter Assembly with a new art. Inspired on Kaladesh. For 6 we get a 5/5 creature. Flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control no Thopters other than Thopter Assembly, return it to its owner's hand and create 5 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Then we get a Temple of Epiphany. I am very happy with this one. We needed more reprints of the Scrylands. Well, this is one, so that's a start. They enter the battlefield tapped, and when they do, you can scry 1, and it taps for either blue or red. Then we get a Sheevan Reef, at colorless, but if you choose blue or red, it deals 1 damage to you. Ethereum Sculptor for 2, a 1/2. Artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. For 3, a 2/1. Girapur Gearcrafter. When it enters the battlefield, creates a 1/1 Thopter token with flying. Fairy Machinist. For 4, we get a 2/2 flying. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And we get 2 of those. Trinket Mage. For 3 mana we get a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 1 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Riddlesmith. For 2, a 2/1. When you cast an artifact spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Treasure Mage. 3 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 6 or greater. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Trophy Mage. For 3 mana, also 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 3. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Whirler Rogue. For 4 mana, a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Tap 2 untapped artifacts you control. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Alright, another Ethereum Sculptor. Barrage Ogre. For 5 3/3. When you tap it and you sack an artifact, it deals 2 damage to any target. Maverick Thopterist. For 5 mana, a 2/2 with Improvise. When Maverick Thopterist enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 colorless Thopters with flying. I'm not gonna repeat all that. Reclusive Artificer. For 4 mana we get a 2/3 haste, and when it enters the battlefield you may have it deal damage to target creature equal to the number of artifacts you control. Then Ichor Wellspring. For 2 mana an artifact. When it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card, and we get 2 of those. Then the Inventors Goggles, another equipment for 1. It gives your creature +1/+2, and when an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, an artificer enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach Inventors Goggles to it, and it has an equip cost of 2. Now, as you have noticed, most of these guys here are artificers. Right. Mycosynth Wellspring for 2. When it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. We get 2 of those as well. A Mere Sire for 2, a 1/1 creature. When it dies, create a 1/1 colorless Mere artifact creature token. A Nurok Replica for 3 mana, 1/4. And if you pay 2 mana and you sacrifice it, you return target creature to its owner's hand. Pyrite Spellbomb for 1, an artifact. You can choose to pay red and sacrifice it. It deals 2 damage to any target. Or 1, sacrifice it and you draw a card. Filigree Familiar 2 times. It's a 3 mana creature, 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. When it dies, draw a card. Voyager's Staff for 1, an artifact, and if you pay 2 and sacrifice it, exile target creature. Return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Right, and then we have a couple of islands, a couple of mountains. Oh, wait. Great Furnace, an artifact land. You can tap it for red, but still it's an artifact land, so you can do some shenanigans with these cards. Seat of the Synod, also an artifact land, but for blue. Then we have a Swiftwater Cliffs. Enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life, and it taps for blue or red. We have seen so many reprints of this one in the recent years. It's not even funny anymore. So we get 2 of those. Darksteel Citadel, also an artifact land, but colorless. It's indestructible, and you tap it for colorless. Foundry of the Councils. It's a regular land. You tap it for colorless, or you pay 5 and you sacrifice it. Create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter tokens with flying. Phyrexia's Core, also a land, taps for colorless, and if you pay 1 and you sacrifice an artifact, you gain 1 life. Artificer's Epiphany. For 3 mana and instant, draw 2 cards. If you control no artifacts, discard a card. Galvanic Blast. 1 mana instant, deals 2 damage to any target, so basically a shock, but with Metalcraft it deals 4 damage to that permanent or player instead, if you control 3 or more artifacts. Very nice. Welding Sparks. For 3 an instant, it deals X damage to target creature, where X is 3, plus the number of artifacts you control. That can really be nasty if you have a lot of artifacts. Shrapnel Blast, oh how I remember you from the olden days. For 2 mana an instant, and you have to sacrifice an artifact as an additional cost, then it deals 5 damage to any target. Then we get some Thopter tokens here. Oh, 5 in total, no new art, just 2 instead of the 3 arts that we are used to from Kaladesh. Well, there you have it, 2 decks, Elves and Inventors. Like I said, these decks are going to be the final decks ever. Well, dual decks that is. So, thank you all for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye bye.